Next, we will hear from the Chair Lear over regarding our law and licensing committee report. And I apologize, Brittany, you might have Vice Chair Cummins help me out. I am having some problems with my screen, so I think I'm seeing full view, and now I know I'm not. So every time before I act, I will go up, slide up and down, make sure I see hands. But so thank you for any interruptions. If you're being missed, please dive in. I apologize. A little technical difficulty.
Thank you, and I apologize for this is Carol Lear from the law and licensing report, and I apologize for not turning on my video. But every time I do, everyone sounds like they're in tin cans. So if I turn it off, I seem to be heard better. So sorry for not being more personal and present. Anyway, we have item 16.2 from our committee, which was a request for waiver from Board Rule R277-419 for Box Elder School District. The district is needing for some COVID-related issues to cut some time off of their schedule, their planned schedule, and they were very prepared to explain, and we appreciated that very thoughtful and thorough explanation. So the motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve the request for waiver from the 990-hour requirement in R277-419 for Box Elder School District.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the request for waiver from the 990-hour requirement in R277-419 for Box Elder School District. Discussion to the motion, Board Member Hanson.
Just a question, is this a complete waiver, or are they committing to some amount of hours, say 850 or something like that?
Angie can probably speak to this better than I could, but this is a complete waiver. It is due to problems with increasing student COVID-related problems, as well as their administrators and their teachers. And Angie, you want to add to that?
And Deputy Superintendent Stallings, will you speak to the question?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize, but I was not there in the committee during the discussion, so I don't remember the exact hours.
Sorry.
But I do believe, Board Member Hanson, that it is around 850 hours. But I wanted to remind the board, just for your consideration, you may remember that we, or the board, gave all LEAs, all 160 LEAs, the opportunity to file a waiver, a complete waiver of the 990 before September 1st of this year. At the time, Box Elder did not file a waiver request because at the time they anticipated doing in-person instruction for the full 990. I did want to make you aware that we have at least, I believe, 103 of our LEAs, about 21 school districts, and about 81 of our charter schools who received waivers before September 1st. And as a condition of those waiver requests, we did not ask them to give us an hour commitment of a minimum in lieu of the 990. And then when I say 850, I actually meant 950. I believe that Superintendent Carlson, who happens to also be on today, mentioned to me that they wouldn't start to be short until May of in the spring. So I did want to remind the board that you have provided a complete waiver to the 990-hour requirements for more than half of our LEAs already, and that we did not require of them to give some sort of a minimum on the hours. Instead, we required them to provide formative assessment practices to demonstrate that they'd be measuring student engagement and progress. Box Elder, unfortunately, because at the time they did not anticipate they'd ever need the waiver in September or August, they did not file at that time, but had they wouldn't be coming before the board. So they did file this waiver request later once they found themselves in a position where they needed to take advantage of some of the flexibility that the other 100 plus LEAs currently have.
you have a follow-up, Board Member Hanson?
Thanks, I do. And I'm not trying to be punitive towards Box Elder. I think I appreciate their efforts in this, trying to make it work without the waiver. Looking back, we were probably too free with our waivers before, and maybe should have required some kind of a minimum hourly or some kind of accounting there, but we were in a different situation then, and things have stabilized a little bit now. And I'm okay with granting the waiver for Box Elder because of the history. But I think in the future, we should, rather than complete waivers, we should put some kind of a floor to what we're waiving, just in general. So I'll vote yes on this one.
Okay, AAG Buse, did you have some feedback in on the question?
Yes, there wasn't a complete waiver. Their own board set parameters on how many hours they were going to reduce it by. So Board Member Hanson, they didn't just ask to be completely given a blanket break from any number of hours whatsoever. Their board very carefully considered it and set some very specific parameters about how many hours they would reduce it by and under what conditions they would be reducing their week by. So they were very cautious about how many hours and for how long they would be allowing the week to be reduced by. So they were very considerate of that by your same concerns, I believe, sir.
Well, thank you. And this is Box Elder specifically that we're talking about?
Yes, their school district, their
Okay.
Board of
I do
Education.
appreciate their efforts to try to achieve the 990 and the thoughtful way they've come to us with this. Just again, looking back, I would hope that in the future we're not as free with the waivers and maybe put a few more strings attached when we do that.
And let me just add too, this is again, Carol Lear. I would just add that I did not vote on this. I do work with Box Elder and I will not vote in the final vote, but I very much appreciated how forthcoming they were and how conscientious they were in providing information to the committee.
Okay, the motion before the board, so I'll restate it, prepare to vote. The motion before the board is that the board approve the request for waiver from the 990-hour requirement in R277-419 for Box Elder School District. Board members at this time, please vote. The voting is complete. The motion passes with Board Member Lear abstaining, and there isn't any no votes. Do you have that?
Yes.
Lorraine? Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Please
should I
continue.
continue?
Yeah.
The next item is 16.3 on the agenda. It was a committee discussion of board policy 5003, having to do with adding a representative of the Utah Education and Telehealth Network to, trying to remember, I shouldn't have started down that road, I can't remember, to the Student Data Policy Advisory Group. And so the committee moves that the board approve board policy 5003, Student Data Policy Advisory Group on draft 1.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve board policy 5003, Student Data Privacy Advisory Group, draft 1. Any discussion to the motion? I'm seeing none, so board members, please vote. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Please continue.
Item 16.4, R277-102, adjudicative proceedings, which is a new rule, sort of a deja vu rule because we had it and then it went away and now we're finding it useful again. And this has to do with providing some procedures for hearings for which rules or the code don't provide other rules. And thank you very much to especially AAG Buse, who did a lot of work on this and was very patient and invited a number of those affected by this potential rule, not potential, but this rule who could be potentially affected. She invited them to participate, and I think that made for a better rule. So the motion for the board is for the committee to move that the board approve R277-102 adjudicative proceedings, draft 6, on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-102 adjudicative proceedings, draft 6 on second and final reading. Discussion to the motion? Seeing none, please vote.
Ooh.
Voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Please continue.
The next item is item 16.6, R277-627 early warning program. And this is a new rule that encompasses and embodies just one definition that the law tells us that the board had to create a rule and then create this definition. So it was a lot of work for one definition. The committee moves that the board approve R277-627 early warning program, draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-627 early warning program, draft 1 on second and final reading. Discussion to the motion, board member Hanson.
Just a question. We do have a definitions document. I wonder why wasn't this just included in the definitions rule?
Oh, Scott, great minds think alike. I asked that exact question, and I will, but I don't remember the answer. I think it had to do with the specific nature of the legislation, but I'll let Deputy Superintendent Stallings speak to that. And I think she was there, or whoever else would know the answer.
And actually, Jeff Van Holten might be the better person. It was actually a requirement, an explicit requirement in code or in a recent piece of legislation that asked us to define this term with respect to this program only. That is why the rule is so short. And so in order to identify that we complied with a request related to this program, I believe we felt it was best to keep it in a rule with that program name. But I will also defer to Jeff Van Holten if he has anything else to add.
Jeff, do you have something to add there?
Yes, very quickly. Part of the reason why we did not include this term in the Rule 100 is because this is an outdated term when it comes to special education. But it was an outdated term that was required by the statute, and we didn't want to necessarily, we don't use this term anywhere else. So part of the reason why we just made it for this particular rule. There is hopes down the road that as this program continues that the board will be able to kind of use this board rule to work different requirements for that program as it changes and evolves over time. So we felt it would be best just to stick it in this rule rather than 100.
You have a follow-up, board member Hanson?
Sounds a little convoluted to me, but I'll trust that all avenues have been explored and this is the best way to do it. So thank you.
And thank you. Not seeing any other questions. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-627 early warning program, draft 1 on second and final reading. Board members at this time, please vote.
Just to
voting.
clarify, are we on 116 or on 627?
627.
627.
Thank you.
Did I state the motion wrong?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I just didn't have a vote on 116, so did I miss it?
Oh,
okay, let's finish this one. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. So let's continue.
You did skip one.
did we need to go back? Did I skip one?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Yes, I did. Thank you. Lorraine, item 16.5, R277-116 audit procedure, which is an amended rule. The committee reviewed the proposed changes and made a few of our own, but right now the committee moves that the board approve the, no, sorry. Let me get to the right page. Hang on one second. Right now, the committee moves that the board approve R277-116 audit procedure draft 2 on second and final reading.
That's correct. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-116 audit procedure draft 2 on second and final reading. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair. Carol, did our audit committee team weigh in on this?
I recall that was true. Somebody else,
Angie
member,
said yes, they did.
and Member Cummins made the motion, so I'm quite sure it's true.
Because she's the audit chair. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-116 audit procedure draft 2 on second and final reading. Board members at this time, please vote. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Please continue.
Thank you. The next item is, the next two are related, and the next one is item 16.7, R277-550, charter schools definitions, where our staff astutely saw a problem coming and made some recommendations in the form of this amended rule, making it clear that a satellite school has to have the same authorizer as the original school. So the committee moves that the board approve R277-550 charter schools definitions draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-550 charter schools definitions draft 1 on second and final reading. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, please vote. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Please continue.
The next item is 16.8, and it is related to the definition above, R277-552 charter school timelines and approval processes, another amended rule. And this would be the implementing rule using the definition that's now revised. And the committee moves that the board approve R277-552 charter school timelines and approval processes draft 2 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-552 charter school timelines and approval processes draft 2 on second and final readings. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Belknap.
Sorry. Maybe because Mike made this, did the charter board weigh in on this?
And I would ask Deputy Superintendent Stallings to speak to that. I don't know the specific answer.
Thank you. I can tell you they did not opine, as far as I know, or provide testimony during the committee meeting. But Jennifer Lambert did reach out to me to say that they had reviewed both drafts of 550 and 552, but that they did not plan to make any comments or provide feedback or request for changes. So
Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion to the motion. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-552 charter schools timelines and approval processes, draft 2 on second and final reading. That's a motion before the board. Board members, please vote. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Please continue.
And finally, that's our last item, but I also, like Laura, would like to take a point of personal privilege and thank the committee that I worked with. And the backup singers were fabulous. The staff were really helpful. A special shout out to Kathy Helgeson. We had a number of visitors to almost every meeting, and she was extremely professional and helpful to the visitors, I was told. And I really, really enjoyed working with this committee. Everyone was there every time, very prepared. And it was, even though our opinions differed often, it was very interesting and respectful. And I think we were pretty efficient. So thank you so much to the Law and Licensing Committee from this past year.
Okay. Next.